All right, guys, I want to do a demo for you today, and I want to talk about, show you a couple things about making complex shapes with Maya. Okay, we don't want to be using primitives anymore. So primitives are a starting point now, and you need to think of this as a chess game where we're moving 6 to 8 moves, even sometimes 10, 15 moves out on creating a really complex shape. So I wanted to show you guys a couple different approaches that you can do. I'm going to start with, you know what, I wasn't thinking about exactly what I wanted to start with here. But I'm going to try starting with this guy right here, and then I'm going to see if I can start also with a cube with you guys real quick here. Okay, so give me a second. I'm just going to come to these, and I'm going to add in a couple subdivisions here. So after I create my cube shape, I'm going to come on over. I'm going to create subdivisions right here in height. I might put just one in there, and it goes subdivisions of width. I'm touching the subdivision and highlighting it, and then middle mouse dragging to get them to pop in like that. Okay, I'm going to go to about, let's say, 3 right there. And what I'm going to do on this is, a sphere is great to work with, but what I like to do is I don't want it in a sphere shape right now. My first thing I want to do is turn it to a 90-degree, so I have a major axis to work on. And to me, the major axes is the connection points of where the two vanishing points are. So that would be right here. Do you see this? Right there is a vanishing point, and right there is a vanishing point. So the major axis is running through those 2 points. Even though technically a major axis is on an ellipse, if I do this, the major axis is the longest point. In Maya, I prefer to think of these 2 points as being key because there's a flow of the geometry that's happening. But what I can do with a sphere, what's great about the sphere, if I come over in the input selections and I touch subdivision of axes, I can drop this down to a real basic shape, something like that, with about 7 edges in it. Now, I like to have the center line run down the middle right here. So if you see I don't have a center line there, I'm going to go ahead and increase this to 8, so that way I have a dedicated center line on there. And the reason why I want that is if I hit 3, it's going to smooth nicely. Okay, it's going to hold its shape very well. And then this also enables me to work on half of the shape and not the full shape. Okay, so I'll get to that in just a minute here. So just remember that you can take these primitive shapes here, okay, and you can start with something really simple like a cube, okay, or a sphere, and you can adjust their inputs, and just by coming back and while you're working, hitting the smooth tool, you can see what it's going to look like once we render that inside Mental Ray. Mental Ray is going to keep it smooth for us, okay? All right, so, but right now you can look, it's only 150 vertices if I pull up my vertice count. To pull up that vertice count, showed you guys this before, you're going to come over here to display and display, heads up display, poly count. Okay, so display, heads up display, poly count will bring up this little counter right here. Whenever I touch a piece of geometry, it's going to tell me the size relationship of that geometry. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete some of the faces on this that I don't need. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. Let's say I'm going to delete those faces there. I'm going to delete a section in the back here that I don't need. Let's just go ahead and delete all those right there. Oops. I'm going to get that locked up, so I need to go to see-through mode, make sure I'm getting all those selected. There we go. Delete those guys. So now if you look at your shape, oops. Sorry, my hotkeys are messing up. Center my pivot. Delete my history real quick. So I'm using hotkeys in there. I already did a demo for you guys on hotkeys. Hopefully you've created some hotkeys right now, because if you're going up and you're working out of the menu bar all the time, takes a little bit longer. Okay. So do you see how I created that shape pretty easily right there? Okay. Just from taking a sphere, lowering the input selections on it, and now with that shape, what I can do is I can come in. I'm going to actually duplicate that because I'm going to show you 2 different approaches. Okay, basically if I smooth that, I can see what it looks like smooth. So if I want to start creating a really complex shape, let's say I'm making a really nice curved part for my Super Soaker design. Okay, let's say the top housing of the plastic, so the top canopy that goes over my rifle shape for my Super Soaker rifle, I'm going to have some really cool organics in it, right? Well, this is the shape that I'm going to start with. So the first approach, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hide these so we can see just this one. The first thing that I like to do is I like to just get my shape in a fluid movement, and then I could come back and put some other insertions in there and figure out the way that I want it to be. So something that I might do right now is come over here, I might grab all these vertices, and I'm going to imagine that my shape is about this long, and maybe back over here it ends about right there, let's say. Okay, so now with that shape ending there, what I need to do is create some other vertices, okay, and get them in the middle, and then get my shape, stretched out to how I'm imagining it would look, and I'll be smoothing it as I'm working. Okay, so what I'm going to do really quick here now is I can come over here, I can grab a couple other vertices because I still have some in there. Some of these are holding the shape though as that curves, and I like that sort of curve in there. But let's say for some reason I wanted to flatten a little bit more of the bottom. So I can use my scale tool right now, and I'm going to just flatten them out just a little bit like that by scaling them down. Okay, then I'm going to come over here, I'm going to move this other selection of vertices. I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them back over here like so. Now I'm just doing this, I'm just creating an organic shape out of my head right now. Okay, I'm going to move that up about here. So I need to get some other insertion points in here because I was imagining my shape would do this. It would get really wide here and then curve upward. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into the polygon submenu. Okay, and I'm going to go under the edit. I have a hotkey for it. I always forget where it is. Under edit mesh here, I'm going to have the insert edge loop option in here. Okay, so give me a second. I'm trying to find it. Where is it? There it is. Insert edge loop right there. Okay, so if I come over here now, wherever I touch, it's going to put an edge loop in there for me. So I can imagine this is where pre-drawing the shape that you want to have is really important, because I could think about where I need to have those supporting edges in there, right? Okay, so what I just did, I wanted to have a curve to this, okay? So my gun was going to also get wider in the front here. So what I'm going to do now, remember the scale tool? The scale tool is your friend, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over and select these set of vertices right here, go to the scale tool, and I'm just going to grab the red, and I'm going to start to scale outward a little bit like this. I'm going to come over just to right here, and then I'm going to start to scale this guy out like so. Okay, so now what's happening is I'm starting to create that complex shape that's going to be a very organic, smoothing shape that's going to have some cool edges to it. Okay, now I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use my hotkey. I just did Alt-I, okay, which is my hotkey. Alter all my command functions, extruding, edges, booleans, whatever it is, I have Alt. That's how I remember what those keys are. And so that way I can just come over, hit my hotkey, and boom. I don't have to go up to the submenu every time. Knowing those hotkeys is a great way. It really expedites my workflow, and it makes me really fast, okay? Because I want this to really bow out right here. And since I want that to bow out more and be very organic, I'm going to have to come in and put some more vertices in there to support the bowing of that shape, okay? Once I get those lines in there, I'm going to right click, go back to vertices. I'm going to select right here. Okay, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to start to scale that out a little bit more like this. I'm going to come over here. I put that other row. Look through to make sure you're getting all the vertices selected, because sometimes you'll do this and you miss a couple. So I always look through it like that. Go back to 5. Okay, oops. And start to scale that shape out a little bit. Now, since I added those 2 in here, I can come back and select this row of vertices. And I could also scale these guys out a little bit more too, and pull these back a little bit like so. Okay, so let's go back and take a look. So you know what? Part of me wants to really let's just take all of these. I want to really scale them out, create a really cool sort of organic shape that's there. Okay, so I want to have more of a hard edge here. So I think I want to bring this down a little bit like this. And then I'm going to imagine this is going to wrap up and extend over my rifle. And then as it recedes back here, I'm going to have some of this start to get a little bit smaller. Okay, so I'm going to have to grab the set of vertices that are right here. I'm going to move those over towards the edge, like so. So I'm going to imagine this is sort of now the ending point. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm working on this, hit 3 and smooth it, and look at the shape that you're creating. Okay, so one of the things that's happening is I'm getting lots of round edges in here still. Maybe I want it to be round, but I don't want it to be too round. Okay, so what I have to do is come back to this lower mode right here, okay, and I can insert another edge loop in here, or anytime I bring a series of edges together, it's going to hold the shape for me, okay? The key to that is realizing where to put those edges and why, okay? So right now, the shape is rounding because I don't have any distinct hard edges that are on here. So watch what happens if I come in here. I'm going to hit my insert edge loop again. And I'm going to come right in here. I'm going to click right there. Boom. I'm going to put an edge in there. And I'm going to put an edge in there right here. Okay. I'm going to put 3 really close. So now when I go to smooth, okay, let me click off of that. All right. And I go to smooth my option. See what's happened here? Look at that nice little hard edge I have in there now. Do I have that hard edge on the other side? No. So one of the rules is that whenever I take my edges and I create edges next to each other, I'm going to start to have a nice little defined hard edge. And that's a great way to make some really interesting geometry, because can you imagine this is like a piece of plastic now that has that nice sort of hard edge on it? Okay. Now if I want to, all right, come back here, let's go look at it. You can see my edges are running across. If I select these edges and bring them closer together, the harder my edge will get. Okay, so to select them, I have that option to select by the whole row. So if I select by edge loop, which is under polygon submenu, select edge loop, I come in here and I click on that, it selects the whole bar there. You see that for me? And now that I selected that whole edge loop, I can go to move and watch what happens. I can move that in. But look at what happens right over here in the back. As I start to move these in, it gets really close. Now I'm overlapping. There's a problem there because I was trying to get these curves right in here closer. And as I try to get those closer, when that edge loop went in there, Maya puts a predetermined pattern down there. Okay, so if I want to get that edge loop really close right now, what I might have to do is I can only move it a certain distance. I can only move it to about right there. Okay, but you can see right here, do you see how close that is? Let me pull a little bit closer. There, it's really close, right? But over here, it's still far away. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to go and move those vertices individually to get them a little bit closer to create that hard edge. So real quick, let me click off of it. Let me hit 3, okay? And see how that hard edge, see how it's in there right now? It's very distinct and very hard, right? Okay, that's because the vertices, the edges are really close together. In fact, if you look at this, I even have a bump where it bumps over. And the reason why that is happening, if I go back and unsmooth it right now, well, look at that. I moved some of my vertices too close together. So now I'm going to click back to vertices, okay, and I'm going to come in here. I'm going to select a couple of these, all right, and I'm going to start to move these back manually. So perhaps from the angle that I was at, I moved these just too close. So I'm going to select just these 3, and look, I'm going to start to slide them back over like this. I'm also going to come back in here and select this guy and move him over a little bit like this. Okay? Now, if I follow that path that goes down here, aha, look at what's happening right there. Can you see it? It's a drop off right there, right? So I need to select that guy, and I need to move him back a little bit too. Okay? And then I just sort of eyeball it, look at it, make sure. Now here, look at how much wider it gets. Okay, and since it gets a lot wider there, look what happens when I smooth it right now. I have a nice hard edge, and also look, I don't have that lip anymore, do I? Because I moved the vertices back a little bit. But I have a nice hard edge that flows along this geometry right here. Okay, but then over here, I lose a little bit of the hard edge. It starts to round a little bit. So what I'm going to do is go back to the lower mode here, go back to vertices, and I'm just going to select these little vertices right here. I'm going to move them closer towards that edge. I'm just going to do it manually. So if I bring them up to about right there, now you can see if I bring them any more, what's going to happen? I get a drop off. When I get that drop off and I'm that close, what is that going to do to my model? So let's take a look real quick, right? It doesn't do it as bad there, probably because of the curve, but it'll start to give me, I don't know if you can see it right there, but see I have like an immediate drop off. So if I want to keep it rounded, I need to move those vertices back, okay? And what's really cool is I can do this, because I can select those vertices that I had right there, and I could look at it in a smooth mode like this, and then I can move them a little bit. See, if I bring them any bit closer, I just moved them a teeny bit, like a 16th over, look at what happens. I get that drop-off edge right there. Do you see that? So, but if I go back to 1, you're like, oh, I moved them way too much. Yeah. So if I move them back a little bit and then hit smooth, see what's great is I can see what's happening in smooth. So that's too much. Right there is perfect. I have a hard edge and it's wrapping around and it's exactly where I want it to be. It's mimicking the rest of the shape. Okay, but I do like to go back because I like to keep my consistencies correct. So even though it's looking that way and smooth, I'm going to move them just a little bit back. So I'm trying to match that distance there. And when I look at that, that's pretty close to wrapping around there. I might even pull this one over just a little bit more. And then look, as I bend through here, these are getting a little close. That one's fine. So now I'm going to select these vertices right in here. Okay. And look at what happens, though. That curve tapers off because it's an organic shape. That's okay. I'm just going to move those vertices back just a little bit like so. And come back in here, move that guy back a little bit. I'm going to select these vertices here, hit F. Now I accidentally selected the vertice on the bottom here. See that? So if I move that, it's going to change the shape. So that's why it's really important a lot of times when you're working, you want to come back and stop and just, look in the see-through mode like this. I'm going to deselect that right there. And then I'm going to move that back to have it pretty similar. That similar sort of pace. I'm going to look at that line coming. That looks pretty good right there. Then I'm going to come over to this little vertex here, move them over just a little bit more, and now let's smooth them. Okay? So I'm going to go back to my independent selection. I have a hotkey for that, by the way. That's how I do it so quick. A buddy of mine, I don't know how to do it. A buddy of mine who's a Maya wizard programmed my hotkeys in there for changing to vertices to prime selections, and I love it. It really expedites my workflow. Okay, so now if I hit 3 and look at it, look at that nice hard edge I have on that shape. You see that? Okay, so I started that shape from what? Part of a sphere. And I made it really low. That's a really jagged shape, isn't it? Look at that. That's not high res. It's only 130 vertices. That's nothing. But look at how organic it is right now. Okay? So you have to look at your shape and just talk to yourself a little bit and realize that, hey, if you want to get an edge on something, you have to bring vertices together. Now let's say I even wanted more of a crisp edge on there. Okay? What I'm going to do right now is I need to come over here. I want to select by edges. So if I go to edge, I can come in here and I could manually go through here now and I could select edges and move them upward to get them nice and crisp, right? Now there's a difference. Here they're a little bit more spaced out. Here they're a little bit closer. I can try to do that with the select edge tool again. So I'm going to come back under select. Okay, I'm going to go to select edge loop. I'm going to double click here and select that whole line right there. Do you see that? Now watch what happens if I take that edge and I start to move it up and get it a little bit closer in there, and I hit 3. Look at the nice crisp edge. Usually you have to click off the shape to see it because the lines get in there. I'm getting a nice edge in there. Do you see that? So the closer those edges get to each other, the more of a crisp edge that I start to get in there. However, you can follow that path line right here. Down here it starts to dip away. So if I want these edges to be a little bit closer, I have to come back in here and I have to select the edge. So what I'm sort of showing you today has a lot to deal with. I don't want to call it edge modeling, but it's just your edges are what hold the shapes together. And by manipulating them and bringing them closer in together, look at that. That one's really far. Getting them spaced in the appropriate space and together, you can control the look and feel of your model and the hardness of an edge or two. Okay, so there I'm going to get these sort of pulled up. I'm just manually pulling them up. Oops. Getting them a little bit closer and a little bit closer. Okay, and so now when I click off of that object, and if I hit 3, I have a little bit more of a harder edge in there. Now if I really wanted to find that edge and I want a real crisp edge, what do I need to do? Put another edge loop in there. Okay, put another support. So watch. I'm going to come here and go to my hotkey, which is insert edge loop, which is Alt S. Okay, I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to go. Actually, it didn't do it. Let me see. There it goes. Didn't go the right way. There, now I got it in there. Okay. Now that I got that extra edge loop in there, that's another one. So now when I look at it smooth, oops. There, can you see it? It's nice and crisp. I have a nice hard edge in there. So do you see how that could be a cool top to my rifle that's very organic? Something that's neat about that, right? So what I'm going to show you in a minute here, the only thing that sucks is this. I just did all that work on the left-hand side, right? If I go and do all that work on the right side, is it going to be accurate? No, it probably is not going to be accurate. So this is what I can do. I can delete the whole right-hand side, duplicate that piece, flip it over, merge the vertices, and it'll be perfect on the other side. But before I do that, what I need to do is I want to resolve the bottom of my rifle right here. So I'm going to come down here with Alt-S. I'm going to insert some more edge loops. I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, because I want a hard edge down there. Okay, so I have 4 in there total. But right now, they go straight down. You see that? So I want to move them over and get a little bit of a nice, I like to get them paced where they're equal segments and they just round very nicely. So all I'm going to do is come in here and go to that select tool again, select edge loop. I'm going to double click right here. See, it's still memorizing that other selection on top. So to get rid of that, I have to click off of it, usually do this, come back then, now go to edge, and then I'm going to go back to select. Maya's funky that way sometimes. It remembers the task at hand because of the way the history works. There, I have that edge loop selected. Now I'm going to go here, I'm going to move that back a little bit. See how I did that? I'm going to grab these two. Only grab that one. So I have to go back to select again, select edge loop, hold shift because I'm adding 2, right? I hold shift, I double click that edge loop right there, go and pull up my move tool, move that back just a little bit like that. Okay, there. So now I moved it over, so now I have a nice flowing little line, but that was flowing here because it was curving. Here I didn't have as much as a curve, so I need to come over here and check my lines to make sure I didn't accidentally create a little edge in there. That actually looks pretty good. What I was worried about is back here. Here, I'll do it manually. I was worried that I might have a little edge like this in there by accident, okay? I don't want that in there. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute, but look at what happens, guys. Let me go to smooth mode. If I do that, and that line is over, I don't know if you can see it. Let me flip it this way. And let me click off of it. Whoa, look at that. What did I just do? By having 3 edges next to each other and pulling one edge in, it gave me that nice little line detail. That it looks like 2 pieces of plastic with a mold line in the middle. Okay, here, let me hit Command Z. All right, let me go back a couple steps. So look, if I pull that edge back out, I lost that little line in there. Okay, so here, let me go Command Z and just undo it. There. Okay, so if I look right now at my model, see that? I just have a crisp edge on it. Okay, so let's say I really like that because that's a great way I can add a little bit of detail, right? So let's come up here. So now not only do I have hard edges on my model in a really cool sort of organic shape, I was imagining like a round circle here, the front of the rifle. Maybe I have components in the back there that are like gear-like, okay? So let's say come back to this and I want to have that really definitive hard edge in there where it drops. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to insert another edge right in the middle. So I'm going to go to insert edge loop right there. Oops. Hold on a minute. I did something. I hit a key I didn't mean to hit. Okay. And then Alt-I. I'm going to come back and put a line right in here. See that? Right there. Boom. I put that line in. Now that that whole line's selected, I'm just going to go to my move tool, which is right here. Okay. And it just happens to be centering it right there. I'm going to pull that line down a little bit and put it over just a little bit like that. Okay, so now let's go take a look. When I click off of my geometry and I go to smooth it, whoa, check that out. See that nice little line that runs down the whole side? Look at how smooth that goes all the way around there. That's pretty cool, right? That's how I start adding some really nice finite little detail to my model now. I'm starting to make this look like it was a piece of plastic that was actually poured in a mold. Okay, so I could come in and define any other part of this that I like. Let's say I like that a lot. Now, what I would recommend, because I'm a little bit more meticulous, is that edge that I just dropped, I need to come around here and make sure that it dropped at the right point. So I'm going to go back to my unsmooth mode and make sure that edge is landing in between those 2 points real quick. Does that make sense? Because if it drops too much over, it won't quite work as well. And it looks pretty good. Okay, so just, I don't want to take this demo too long. Okay, but I've created the shape. So now let's talk about capping the end of the shape. I need to bring it to close somehow. Okay, well, there's a couple things that I could do. Some of you guys have become extrusion happy, where you select a face and you extrude, extrude, extrude. But like I was working with Marilyn yesterday, sometimes there's a problematic issue because when you're selecting faces, you accidentally select through to the other side and select another face. You extrude something out, and now you've created some weird piece of interior geometry that's totally going to mess with your model. So what I like to do quite often is you can select by edges and extrude edges out, okay, instead of doing faces. So if I want to bring this, so if I look at the smooth right now, I have this huge hole here. I want to bring this to an end right here, right? Because I need to cap that off somehow. So what I'm going to do, I'm imagining this smoothing and rounding out just to about right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in here to my edge tool, okay, and I'm going to select all these edges right in there. You see how I did that? Let's try that again. Make sure you're on independent selection. There we go. Now all I want are the edges on the end. So what I can do is I can hold control now, deselect these, and I have all the edges on the end. Or I can try under, let's hit, let me click off of that. If I go to select, see how I had edge loop? I also have an edge ring tool. So if I select edge ring and I come here and I click on this, but see what it did? It selected them going back in that order. Well, that means that the edge ring is only going to work in that particular direction, which depends on the flow of your X, Y, or Z axes. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to try select edge loop. I'm going to click here. And that's not doing it either. So hold on a minute. What I need to do, hold on a second. This happens sometimes. Let me select off my model. Let me come back so there's no other selections. Let's go to select. Let's try border edge tool. Aha! See what I just did? I was able to find another selection that worked. So these 3 tools right here, edge loop, edge ring, and border edge, they all 3 work in a different consistency depending upon the X, Y, and Z axis of your model. Does that make sense? You have a piece of geometry that you're modifying. Maya doesn't know that the long way for you is your Y axis. You probably don't know that either until you get in there and you start using those. But now that I have that selected, look, I can extrude from edges. I don't just extrude from faces. So now I'm going to go in, I'm going to use my hotkey, but if I wanted to come up under here, under Edit Mesh and Extrude, right? If I hit that button, look at what it just did. See that? It allows me now to extrude an edge out like that, see? However, though, I have to be careful, because see what it did to that little detail end? It mucked it all up in there. Do you see that? It made the vertices move. That happens sometimes when you use, now this is confusing. When I hit extrude, it gave me arrows. And you see where it put the arrows? It put them on the bottom here. If I hit the normal move tool, which is S, oops, not S, I hit my own hotkey there, sorry. If I hit, what is it, W or E? W, it puts it in the center, and then it moves them all equally. Extrude is weird like that. But if by doing that, you see how it's keeping these points together? You see that right there? They're still together. They're exactly perfect. No matter where I move that, it's going to keep it together. So now I can use the scale tool, okay, and I could start to scale this together and bring it to an end, let's say. But I do have to be concerned if I scale it too much, it's going to adjust the depth of that edge loop right there, which is going to affect that little curve. So I might have to go back in and manipulate that later. But that's no problem. That's only, it's going to take me like 2 edge loops to close this hole. So there's one right there, right? But do you see the difference? This distance from here to here is now smaller because I scaled it down versus the distance right here is a little bit larger on that edge right there. But that's okay. So what I'm going to do is hit extrude again. And look at that asinine arrow it just gave me, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's, if I try to use that right now and pull it out, look, it totally overlaps all the geometry. It makes it all crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit W and use this, and I'm going to pull it out a little bit like that. See that? And then I'm going to scale it back in like this, okay, to where it's almost about ready. And if I want to, I can merge all those vertices together into one point. Okay, I still feel like I want to extrude one more time, so let's just hit extrude one more time. Let's go back here. I'm going to bring this in and scale it all back together right to about there so it's small. And then what I can do is I can fill that hole if I want. And here's how I can fill it. I could select an edge, just one edge like this. And if I come under my mesh options, there's fill hole, and boom, it just filled the hole for me. Okay, so now when I look at this shape right here, okay, and I hit 3, click off of it. So I close that edge. The only thing I have to do is I need to figure out if I want these vertices to come together or not in there. Okay, let's say I did want them to come together. I wanted these to run their course, right, and match up to each other. What I would do is I would need to merge that geometry together, those two tracks, and have them be perfectly set. So here's how I could do that really quick. Okay, so let me go Command Z a couple steps. I'm going to go back, take part of this out that's right here, and give me a second here. I'm going to start to scale these together, like to about here. Okay, so what I can do is you can see where I have this other point in here. Okay, give me a minute. I'm going to go back to the mode here. Okay, that's actually, remember when I put this in here? That little indentation that we see when it's smooth right there? I didn't put that in down below. So down below it's just a hard edge. So if I wanted to come in here and merge and have that line continue to wrap around, I would have to match that same line that I had up here on the top. So if I look at it in the rough mode, up here I have basically 4 lines. 1, 2, the one that drops, 3, and then 4 is making that nice little detail. So if I wanted to get that detail to come in over here, I would have to adjust that and add one more intersection line, okay? But before I do that, okay, we can always do that sort of at the end or decide if you want to do that. Because basically right now when I add up the vertices, sorry, it's jumping a little bit. Let me do this. Let's go to vertices. Let me select these, hit F, and jump in there. Right here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vertices, right? If I try to join those down here to below, and I click on those, and I hit F, okay? Always does that, goes right past it. I only have 4 vertices. So if I want to attach those, what do I have to do? Create another edge loop on the bottom segment so they match up so I have my line travel throughout the body. So let's see if I can do that real quick. I'm going to intersect. Okay, I'm going to put another edge loop in there. Okay, that edge loop that went in there, I'm now going to pull up a little bit to create that line. I might even see if I can just lightly move it back. I might have to just adjust, it jumped the other way. There, just like that. Just a little bit. I might have to go in and adjust it a little bit. Okay. Now I can go to vertices. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete the other half of my model now. I don't need that. So here I'm going to click on faces. I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to line up, go to see-through mode. I'm going to select all this other half right here. See that? Okay. And then it's just always look at it. Always like to spin it to the other side and make sure there's something I haven't selected by accident. I'm going to hit delete. See what I have right now? I have one side of my model. Okay. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to get these vertices all fixed. So I'm going to right click, go back to vertices. I'm going to zoom in here. Okay. So I need to pull these vertices together right now. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my scale tool. I'm going to scale them up like this. Just bringing them all together. Okay, I'm going to grab these vertices here. I'm going to bring them down towards each other. Over, and I need to try to get them to match as well as possible. Hate it when it does that. Maya doesn't always zoom in, and you have to sort of get in there. Sometimes if you hit F, it can get in there perfectly for you. There it is. I don't know why it's being such a pain right now. It's not letting me get all the way in there. Let me zoom in here. Every time I go to frame the view, it keeps jumping. And I think that has to do with the clipping plane that needs to be adjusted. There, I should be fine right there. Okay. It doesn't give me much room to work, though. Let me see if I can adjust it really quick. Let me come over here. Let me go to my perspective view. I'm going to bring up select perspective, go to my attribute editor. And here, let me see my clipping near clip plane. Maybe that's it right there. Let me see if I can bring this in, raise this number. Let me see what happens if I put this here at 1. Okay. See if that makes it a little bit easier. Nope. Okay, give me a second. Let me stop the recorder. All right, and turn the recorder back on here. So I did a little mistake when I put that other edge loop on the bottom here to create that line. I'm going to show you a mistake that I made. I didn't bother. See, I have that edge loop in here, so when I click off my shape right now, I have that hard edge that runs along. What I didn't do is I didn't match it up to what was in here. And what I mean by didn't match it up is here in the rough mode, I had one line, a second line, and then it dropped. And I skipped one in here. Okay, because when I came to look at these vertices right now, the little part that goes inward, that drops in that little canal, wasn't quite hooking up. So I'm trying to get that adjusted if possible in here. So let me see if I can move these over. So basically what's going to happen is that point's going to connect to there. Okay, this point is the canal that drops in that's giving me that detail. And I accidentally made a little mistake when I was doing this really quick. I wanted to get that line to go all the way around. I didn't get that in there correctly, but I could always fix that at the end. Okay, so let me take care of this real quick. I'll pause it, I'll get it fixed, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to duplicate your piece of geometry and add it. Stop the recording. Okay, sorry guys, I stopped there for a minute. So what I'm going to do, I am all right here. I have the right edge in there that I want the right vertice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to merge these together, and this is how I merge vertices. I have to have the same piece of typology. And I'll explain this in a minute. I have to have the same piece, so when I duplicate the other side to this, I have to tell Maya that it's the same piece, and I do that by combining them. But right now, it's already the one piece of geometry. So all I have to do is come in here and select the two vertices that I want, which are right there. I have them both selected, okay? And if you come up over here, in the polygon submenu, you're going to have this little guy right here. And if you hold right there, if you hold your cursor over it, it says Merge Vertices. Okay, that's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is if you come back over here under Edit Mesh, you have Merge too. And so when I hit M, it now merges those vertices together. So I'm trying to get that line to be consistent. So what I'm going to do is select these two vertices, and I'm just going to hit this little, I have my little menu bar quick select here. So I'm going to select that there. I'm going to come over here, select that. Now don't be selecting like that, because you'll select too many vertices, and you might select vertices in the back. So I'm just going to select these two like this. I'm going to come back over here and tell it again, merge vertices like that. So you see what Maya's doing now? It's adding these, oops, just hit a delete button there by accident. I was trying to hit shift, not looking at my keyboard. There, I merged those two. I'm going to select these two. I'm going to merge those, okay? And then when you come over here, even these vertices aren't connected. And you know how I can tell they're not connected? Usually it lights up a little bit and it's hard to see, but if you touch two vertices that are on top of each other, and if you just touch them and move, it'll only select one vertice. So there it selected both of them, so actually they are connected right there. Does that make sense? This is what I mean. Let me show you. So look, if I scale these vertices together right here, and they look like they're connected, don't they? But they're not. This is how you test it. You just touch them once, and you just move. And if they're not connected, they'll separate it. Maya will only pick one vertice out of the two for you. Okay? I'm going to take these two vertices right here. I'm going to merge them together. Okay? So now, if I come over here and I select any of these vertices, if I grab a touch there, that's together. See that? If I move it, it's moving with the other line down below. So now that's completely selected. I might have some little adjustments to do, like that vertice is that little edge that came in here. Might need to push it back a little bit this way to keep that edge in there. Might need to come over here and scale these out just a little bit more. Make sure nothing else is selected in your model. You didn't select through. hit some other vertices. I might scale them up just a little bit. I might grab that middle selection. Oops. Since this was rounding right here, nothing else is selected. I might push that back a little bit more to keep that nice edge in there. And then I come back up here. Here it was getting a little iffy. Do you see that? The little middle vertice right there was going a little bit off to the side. There, I want to sort of straighten it up right now. So now if I come in here and even if I move that guy, try to keep him sort of straight, and I can delete him because I don't even know if I need him in there. Okay, so now when I hit my smooth, if I click off of him and I smooth, you see what that line does now? That line continues from here and connects and goes all the way around there. The only difference is when it wraps around the front right here, it gets a little tighter there, doesn't it? So do you see that line? See what it's doing? Here it's a little bit wider, that nice detail line. When it gets around to this front end, it gets a little too tight. Well, that's an easy fix. All I have to do is go back to this mode here, and you can see how wide it was here. So all I'm going to do is come over here, select my vertices. I'm going to sort of zoom in right like this, and I just need to widen this out just a little bit more. So what I'm going to do that is select these three, oops, there, there, and there, and then I'm just going to lightly push them this way and lightly come out that way to widen that up a little bit more. And then look, it narrows, it converges from here, it even gets smaller to there. So I'm going to come back here and do the exact same thing. If Maya will let me get in there. There we go. And hit F, frame in that view. Okay. Select these three right here, and I'm going to just lightly, now I see what I did there? I selected through and I selected vertices in the back. That's why you always check. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to my shaded mode. I'm just going to touch them by holding shift and click on each one. Now I know it's only showing me, I'm only selecting those vertices. And the way I know too is that Maya will position the arrow between the other selection. Does that make sense? So if the arrow offsets and isn't right in the front, you know you've selected other vertices. So I'm going to move these back over just a little bit like that. Okay. Actually, didn't mean to select that guy there. I just wanted these. Just expand that just a little bit like so. It's not so pinched together. Then I'm going to come back here. I'm going to select these. I'm going to bring them up, out just a little bit more. Okay. And then I need to grab that inside vertice there. Bring that over a little bit more in the middle. Come back over, compare this one. Bring that guy over a little bit more like this. Like that. Okay. And now when I hit smooth, see that line is increased, the thickness of that line, and I can increase it a little bit more even by getting in there. Okay, but for right now, I got a pretty cool piece of geometry that's working. Okay, now let's say I just did all that work right here. Let's say if I wanted to come in the back here and I wanted to close that end off, but I don't want to do all the work, right? What could I do? This piece is the same consistency all the way through, so watch this. I'm going to duplicate it. See that? I'm going to go to face. I'm going to select all of this from here back. All of it. I just deleted all that. I'm going to take this piece now, center the pivot, delete the history. I'm going to bring it back here. I'm going to inverse it because the scale tool is my friend, right? I'm going to come back here. I'm going to delete that end off right there. Uh-oh. Let's try that again. There, it's gone. And now I'm going to select this guy here. I'm going to move him right over there. I'm going to drop him right on there. See how I did that? I can do that. Why? Because the geometry, the mesh is all the same. It's the same exact. So why rebuild the whole back end when I can just take a piece off the front end and merge the vertices together? Okay, so watch. Let me zoom into it real quick. I have some little adjustment to do. Because look, that piece is a little bit off. So I'm going to get it lined up the best that I can about there. Okay, I'm going to stretch it out just maybe a little bit more. It's about there where it's matching pretty good, right? See, that's pretty close. So look, now the rest of it's just me finessing it a little bit. That edge doesn't quite hit that edge. Okay, that's easy. I'm going to select this, go to vertices, select all these right here, use the scale tool, bring them together, and then I'm going to move them over so they're in line. See that? So now there are two separate pieces of geometry here. Let me move this out just a little bit. There. I could even bring that edge over just a little bit more so it hooks up perfectly with the back of that. You see how I did that? Now I don't have to rebuild the back end. I already did it on the front. So now here's a good example. These are two pieces of geometry, and I can look at that in my outliner here. You see this? So that's a piece, that's a piece. Two separate pieces. I'm going to combine them now. Tell them to become one. You and you will be married. So I'm going to select them. I'm going to come down here under Mesh, go to Combine. Boom. Now it's one piece of geometry. A new pivot. I'm going to hit C, center the pivot in the object. Now I'm going to come back here, and now I'm going to merge vertices. Okay? Now I want this edge to stay perfect there. So what I'm going to do is just sort of move this vertex just over a little bit, like that. Select these vertices right now, and let's try that again. I have a hotkey which is Alt-M. Because remember I told you what my hotkeys are? Whenever I'm affecting an object and modeling, when I extrude, it's Alt-E. When I merge, it's Alt-M. When I insert an edge loop, it's Alt-I. Alt is for affecting an object. That's how I remember it. Any key function I'm doing, if I'm saving, deleting history, all that stuff, I use the control options. Okay, so now I just come across here, and I'm just going to select these vertices. Those two vertices, I'm going to hit Alt-M, boom, done. Okay, make sure you're getting the right ones. Select these two right here, Alt-M, okay. Select the, let me get this guy moving over just a little bit so he's a little bit closer here. Okay, that's the guy that was going downward a little bit. Select these two here, Alt-M. Okay, select these two here, Alt-M. I'm going to move this guy back here just a little bit more. Get him drop down right about there, Alt-M. Okay, Maya does that for you, but that's sort of the old school way that I learned. I just out of habit, I try to get him as close as possible, not to have any hiccups in the model. So there's a good example. You see how this is a little bit lower? I want that to stay there, so I'm going to select this little selection right here, and I'm just going to drop it down a little bit like this. So that's pretty good placement in there. And now that way you see the vertices are pretty exact, right? So now look, Alt-M, Alt-M, Alt-M. I have the inside vertices right there, Alt-M. And then these last two vertices right here, Alt-M, okay? Follow that line, and I have the last edge right there. So again, I want that line to stay straight, so I'm going to grab this vertex here, because if I snap them both together, or they come, they might move that line over a little bit. It's not a big deal. It'll still, Maya will still fix it usually, especially when I put, see, move that line over a little bit. So just if I'm real picky, I just take that line, I move it over right there, and select them Alt-M, okay? So now when I look at this, and I smooth it, look. Hold on, I'm trying to click off of it. Maya does this thing where if I have another object to click on, there it goes. That's the way to relieve it. So when I click back here and go to smooth mode, look at my object now. Look at that cool little detail. Look at that organic shape I made. That's awesome. And now I'm going to take that. I'm going to duplicate that. Duplicate, boom, put it right here. Go to inverse. Start to flop it. See where it flops here. Just type in -1, -1, boom. It's there. And now I'm going to center, pivot, bring it right up towards the edge. And basically, I can look at that. I have the exact side on the other side. I don't have to model the other piece and try to match it. If I combine those, merge all the vertices together, I will have a perfect model. Unless there's something else you decided you wanted to do. Okay? For example, if I come on here, what I like to do sometimes is I get that right up on the edge right there. I select both and I smooth them just to see what my piece would look like. Okay? Now I have a hard edge in there. That hard edge will disappear once I move the vertices together. Okay, but let's say I wanted a little bit more space in between the two, right? As a backup, I might decide to go in there and select this whole edge loop in here and extend it over just a little bit, right? So let's do that really quick. So let's go under select. Okay, let's go to independent selection here. Let's go under select. Let's go under edge loop and let's double click this right here. Oh, that's not it. Okay, let's go to select edge ring. It's probably going to be it, right? Oh, that's not it either. Okay, so select off of it, come back. Let's try border edge. I have a feeling it's going to be a real pain in the butt for me, and it's not going to want to select it. And let me try again. Let's go select here, border edge, and let's select here. Ah, it did it. Cool, right? Now that it did it, I'm going to extrude it. Alt-E, boom. Okay, and I'm just going to go to my arrows. I'm going to bring that over just a little bit. Do you see that? Haven't changed anything. Just to have a little bit of geometry in there. If I don't like it, I could go in there and I could delete the vertices around it and let it just maintain itself. That's my little safety net sometimes, is I go in there and I just like to bring out a little bit of geometry like so. So now I can take that piece. This piece is still identical to that piece, except I put the little middle segment in there. Now I can get them pretty close. I can touch both models like that. Okay, and I could come in here right now, and I'm going to say under mesh, combine. Okay, and then it's going to take me about 5 minutes to, maybe not even that, just 3 minutes to just combine vertices. So what I like to do is I like to do it in a see-through mode, so I see exactly what I'm selecting. Click on the model, go to vertices, and I can select these and just go Alt-M, 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 Alt-M. Here's the benefit of hotkeys, guys. There used to be a couple scripts out there that you could like select it and Maya would do it for you. And I wouldn't be surprised if in some of the newer versions coming out that's an option. But it's sort of funny because when you're working in Maya, I was talking to a friend of mine, Manny, his name's Manny Fragulis. Manny owns CGMA Online School, and Manny's a modeler at DreamWorks. And I was joking with him one day, just a couple months ago, and he goes, dude, we're still like modeling in Maya 7 and Maya 8. Okay, so they're still, the principles are all still there, and they're still using Maya 8 in some areas of DreamWorks for modeling. Not for rendering and other stuff, but for modeling. It's all the basics. You're contorting, you're bending, and creating mesh. So I'm going to come over here right now. I'm going to keep sort of going along. If you'd like to do this, hit F. Try to zoom in and pull out a little bit so you can see what it is that you're merging. So I like the see-through method a lot because I know I'm not accidentally selecting other vertices. Okay, so give me a second here. Just need to go all the way along. It's only taking me a couple minutes. I'm almost done. With the top, that is. I know sometimes you're like, what are you looking at? Because you're looking at the geometry and you're twisting around and it gets a little harder to see, right? So like right there, I want to make sure, do you see that? From here I had 3 points almost overlapping each other right there. So sometimes you just zoom in a little bit, move around the model, make sure you get it exactly where you want it to be. Okay? Here I'm going to just make sure I'm right on those two. There it is. Alt-M, Alt-M, Alt-M. Oops. Almost done. Sounds really tedious. It's just because you're just doing the same repetition. Usually it takes about 3 minutes, the length of a song. If you're listening to music or have Pandora open, I'll be like, oh, I got to merge all those vertices. I don't want to. And then you start doing it and you're like, hey, it took me 3 minutes. The length of one song. So let me try to get this lined up to get the other ones. There we go, Alt-M. Bear with me, guys, almost done. Where's my next set? There's my next set there. Alt-M. And then that line goes, whoop, and I'm back here at the end. Let me hit F. Let me just double check. I believe that was it. Those look like they're done already. Let me see. So how do I check to see if it's done? Select it once, move it. It didn't separate. So look, I merged all my vertices right there right now. So let's take a look at it. I click my model, hit 3. Look at how nice and pretty it is. It's an exact match on one side and on the other side. Have that nice little linear detail in there. Okay, that's what it looks like rough, all angled up. Okay, so now here's the thing, just to add one little part onto this. I know this is turning into a long lecture. I just created that piece of geometry, right? I could still use that. it's not wasted. If that's the top part of my rifle, I can duplicate that, take parts, and then merge the vertices back and make another piece that I want to use. So let me show you how I would do that really quick. So look, when that's smooth, that's the top part of my rifle. It's going to be real. Let's say I had another piece down here that I want to have that same little edge in there like that, right? Let's go back. Let's take a look at our model as a rough. Okay, watch. I'm going to duplicate this. Boom. Bring it right down here. Maybe this time I decide to flip it, inverse it a little bit to about there. And let's say I want something smaller that has more curve in it. Okay, that's fine. What I can do is come in here. I'm just going to show you. So if I delete all those faces there, delete all these faces here, okay, that's still part of that geometry, right? It's still combined. It's still one piece. So now I'm just going to come over here, go to vertices, move all these vertices over here. I can reattach those to right here, okay? Now, let's say that I want to get a curve in there. I don't have a curve. Well, we've already covered that a couple times. I could use soft select right now, right? I can manually move the vertices too. Something else I could do is I can get in there and I could also put a lattice on it. Don't forget about the lattices, guys. So here, sometimes I like to manually move them because this sort of goes jagged a little bit. I want to move that up there. And then what I'm going to do is when I get up here, let's say I want this to start curving a little bit. So I'm going to start to curve it myself. Make sure I'm staying nice and squared. I get up to about right there. Let me grab this selection here. Check through your model. Get that to about right there. And then sometimes I have to aim up on my model like this. So that way I'm selecting just that row like that. Okay. And now I'm going to move this, bend that up. Get it up to about there. So there, now I'm putting a cool little curve that could be like for the front of my Super Soaker. Do you see that? So if I center the pivot and I bring that down and I smooth it now, look at how cool that looks with that smooth. See? There might be a whole mechanism in there, but I'm reusing my parts. I already have mesh that's been created. Use that mesh to your advantage. Okay? So let's say I even wanted to do more. I can go to a lattice. Do you remember how to get to a lattice? I showed it to you guys before in a demo. You have to go into the, for me, I just click Alt-L and my lattice is right there. It's really easy because I have that as a hotkey, right? But if you want to get your lattice in there, what you have to do is come into the animation submenu. You have to scroll over here to create deformers, go over to lattice, hit the menu box, tell it to go 5 by 5 by 5. It's usually where I start, hit close, and there's my lattice. The benefit for that is I can quickly distort something where I could come over here, select part. It's similar to like soft select, but I could basically select stuff and I can rotate it and bend stuff very quickly. So let's say I wanted this shape to be a little bit lower because I'm going to have a sprayer that comes out of here and then a huge mechanism in here. Maybe I want this to be a little bit longer right in there like so. And then once I get the shape I like, I hit Alt-H. Okay. Now if I extend this too much in here, let's say I ended up extending this all the way out to here and then this bends up. What do I need right in here, folks? Subdivision. I need to put another piece of geometry in there to keep it round and smoothing. Okay, so let's say I ended up using that shape and I ended up with this type of a shape right here and I want this to round right here. It's not rounding. I need to come in here and insert another edge loop or two. See that? I get one edge loop in there. Okay, oops, it's not selecting the edge loop, and go to vertices. Okay, see through mode. Select just those vertices right there. And if I bring those down just a little bit like so, do you see that? That works. Actually, that's probably all I need. A little bit of a bend in there like this, so I get a nice, try to have your bends in equal portions, right? And then let's say I want to come in here, I want to join, let's get those vertices back together. It's part of that, so let me go to see-through mode here. And when I look at that, I'm going to do some light adjustment here. I'm going to bring these over just a little bit. And I'm not going to use scale in this case. The reason why I'm not using scale is because I don't want it to shrink that interior cavity that's in there. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to move this set over a little bit closer so it's right on top to there. And then when it gets right there, I'm going to deselect it using Control. And then I have just these selected, and I can move those over right to about there. Okay? Get them exactly where I want them to be. And then I could go in and so if I look at those right now, take a look, right? Let's go to shaded mode. I need to bring this lower section down a little bit. Let's go to my rough model. I'm going to select here. Okay. I'm going to select these right in here. And I want to select this other edge right there. And I'm going to lower these down to get them in the right position. See that? And bring them down to about there. There, those vertices are connecting. See that? I'm going to use Control, deselect, and now I'm going to bring these vertices down just a little bit more over like that. That's it. Now they're ready to be joined. They're right in front of each other. So all I have to do now is come back and select them and join them together, okay, and they'll be done. So let's just pretend that I did that. And if we look at our model from this front view now, let's click off of it, and I look here and here, and I put it in smooth mode. I have two, pretty cool pieces of geometry that have some cool bends that are happening. And, if I decide to come in there and there's something I don't like if I decide that I didn't want these edges in here, because actually, remember when I put that middle segment in there, I did that in case there's something I wanted to put in there, but let's say for some reason I didn't want those in here. If I go back to the rough model right now, and I can select that whole edge loop, so let me show you what happens. Look at this right now, smooth. See how there's a little bit of a bump in the middle? If I want to get rid of edges, go back to this rough selection here, press 1, go to edge, okay, I'm going to go down to select again, and I'm in animation submenu, go back to polygons, go to select, it was border edge, I'm going to click this, and Maya's not wanting to do it. Let's try it again, select edge loop ring, there it goes. Selected all of it, hit delete, come in here, select that, hit delete, let's try it again, there it goes, deleted it. I'm going to come back here to vertices, select the vertices, still hold the shape. After you delete edges, then you delete vertices. I hit delete, it only deletes the vertices that don't have edges. It doesn't delete the other vertices. And now when I come over, and if I click off of this, and I put it in 3 and go to smooth, see I lost that interior line that was there. And I have a smooth shape again. Okay, so right here I have that little bulge that's happening in there. I could do the same really quick. I can select these edges and delete them. Okay, so now let's say I wanted to add to, I made a mistake or something I didn't want to do. I come back here and I go back to my rough model mode. I can select here, I can put 2 edge loops in, and then let's say, I want to select those edge loops now and scale them up because I had another idea I wanted to do, right? Let's come back to select. Let's go to edge loop tool and select that one. Now they're both selected. If I go to scale and I scale them up like that, see that? Changes the whole shape of the object. Let's say I decided I want it to be like that. Now I hit 3 to smooth it, and I look at how it's changed again. Okay, so if I click off of it, so you see how you can manipulate your shapes? You can keep coming in, you can put edges, you can take away edges and delete vertices, we can add in edges. This is working with complex shapes, okay? And what I wanted to show you at the very end here, let me just Command Z. I like them just sort of like this, okay? Display, if I go to show all, okay, I started with a rough sphere, right? I could do the same thing with this cube right here. Absolutely. If I take this cube right here, and if I start to grab vertices and manipulate them, so let's just do that just super quick here. If I grab, let's say I had all these vertices, let's say I bring these back here. Let's say I grab these edges, all the midsection right here. I start to stretch these out. Like, oops, I grabbed the end there by accident. Start to stretch those out a little bit like that. Then maybe if I did it again there. That's why you always check your model. See, and if I go to smooth now, look at my shape I've created. Okay, so start with rough, simple parts of primitives. You can delete faces, and then you can keep extruding and extruding. It takes a little bit of practice and getting used to, but if you do it 5 times or so, you start creating these really wonderful shapes. So a lot of your rifles, your Super Soaker toy designs have these very organic, moving, flowing plastic shapes in it. This is how you do it. Go back and think simple cubes because you're going to smooth it. Okay, and then I also showed you today how you can create 1/2 of it, and you get that half looking the way you want it. You duplicate that half inverse, combine them, combine the vertices, and that's how we start to create more complex shapes. Okay, when I'm going to go around between today and next week looking at your designs, I don't want to see primitives. We don't want to be using primitives. We can distort primitives, but we want to be using more complex shapes. Don't give me a squirt gun that's 1970s Hasbro Super Soaker design. That's just like a round water container, around this, a round handle. That's using primitives. We're beyond that. We're trying to move you guys into a more advanced sense, and I'm trying to teach you a little bit more about using typology and polygonal mesh and how you can distort it and start coming up with new shapes. Okay? All right. Have fun, guys. Thank you.